Okay, we're ready to go, Mr. Adams?
Yes, ma'am, we are live.
Okay, fantastic. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 regular meeting of the Hendry County School Board. Reverend Brown, you please lead us in the invocation.
Yes, ma'am. Eternal God, we're so thankful that you give us a chance, Lord, to discuss the business of Hendry County school system. Thank you now for your goodness and your mercy. Please bless us to make the proper decision. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, thank you. Mr. Raskin, will you lead us in the pledge?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Superintendent, you have recognitions?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair, and this is one of the joyful things we do to recognize and honor people who are retiring because of their service or due their service to Hendry County. Unfortunately, because we're distance and distance meeting, our two retirees tonight will be getting their plaques delivered to them. But for the record, and so this makes it in the minutes, I want to recognize Dana R. Long, a master mechanic in Lewiston Transportation, who is retiring after 30 years service, and Maria Rosa Crespo Colazzo, a custodian at Lewiston High School, who is retiring after 9 years service.
Thank you. I know I echo the sentiments of the entire board when I express our appreciation for the service and the work that they've done for Hendry County School District students. Superintendent, do we have any citizen comment on agenda items?
Yes, we do. Can you hear me? Because there is a crane operating outside my office. So I will try, but you can still hear me?
Yes.
It's clear.
Okay, yes, we do have a comment. Hello to whom it may concern. This email is regarding the opening of schools for fall. I have 2 kids attending public schools in LaBelle, and I really think it would be irresponsible to open schools for kids and ignore the increase in COVID-19 cases in Florida. If the governor does not care for our kids' health, we must step up and care for our children and protect them. And in order to protect them, schools should stay closed. We saw what happened when the governor decided to open beaches, the cases were up. I don't want to see that happen with children who go back to school. I hope you consider my opinion as well as other parents who really care about our kids' health. Sincerely, Irma Delgado from LaBelle. And this is in response to the plan that we have for the opening. I will call Dr. Pepe in the morning. I have that on my calendar to do anyway. The one thing that we would be able to do to hold school is if the health department says that it would be unsafe for us to open school. So barring that, we will be opening school according to the executive order that was issued yesterday. And I truly feel for this parent, for her concerns, and for all of our parents and children who are concerned and worried about returning to school. And we just need to ensure that we do it as safely as possible.
Thank you, Superintendent. Are there any, moving forward on the consent agenda, are there any items that any members of the board would like to have removed and put under action items?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
there are a couple of them I would like to, I have E, G, H. And then item O, I just would like to thank the donors out there. Even in these times that we're in now, there are still people out there that are being extremely generous and donating money, and I just want to thank those people out there. I don't necessarily want to pull it, but I just want to make sure that we recognize those people that are still willing to donate to our school system, even in a time like this.
Yes, sir, that is, you hit that nail right on the head, and that is, we have a very generous community, and it's pretty special. So, Ms. Beverly, we are going to move consent item E to action item D. We will move consent item G to action item E, and move consent item H to action item F. Superintendent, may I have a recommendation that reflects the removal of E, G, and H?
Yes, with the exception of items E, G, with the exception of items E, G, and H, I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The amended consent agenda passes unanimously. Right, now we're on the second page. Let me get to this notes. And at this time under action items, I'm going to open up a hearing and request any input from the public regarding this hearing. So at this time, I'll open the hearing. And then the way this works is that there's been a link posted, so anybody who wants to make comments can do so in real time. I guess we'll leave this open for a couple minutes to see if anybody hops on. Okay, I don't see any comment. Would this be a sufficient amount of time, Beverly? Okay, we haven't had anybody log on to make comment on the hearing. So at this time, I am going to close the hearing and ask the superintendent for his recommendation.
Madam Chair, I would recommend permission to include the following position for inclusion in the senior management class pursuant to Florida Statute 121.055, effective July 1st, 2020. The following position: Director of Facilities, Maintenance, and Transportation.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Anne-Marie, do we know what the fiscal impact of this inclusion is going to be, a roundabout?
I know, are you there? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I know I did include it in the budget already. I assumed it was going to happen, but I'm afraid I didn't write it down. I was trying to go look it up real quick. Hold on. $18,000 a year.
An $18,000 increase for the district?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I can get a closer figure, that was just a rough estimate.
Wow, that was not what I was expecting.
Senior management class is about 27% compared to compared to the normal class, which is,
I mean, you know, and this is not, you know, this, just hearing the approximate $18,000 price tag on that is, you know, I kind of felt like the directive has been to scale back instead of adding into, and that's kind of challenging, knowing what we could potentially face after elections and legislature reconvenes. And, you know, one of the things, you know, I hear and is the struggle with when we talk about staffing our schools and teacher pay and stuff, and you know, potential cuts one day is, you know, they always say, you know, prune that tree from the top. So I think $18,000 is significant. And I mean, I don't know how my fellow colleagues feel about that, but that was certainly not what I was expecting.
I agree.
Okay, does anybody have any further comment?
Why is it such a, I don't understand why it's 18,000. Can we get a breakdown of, before we go any further with that?
Yes, you could, and I'll let Anne Marie get those closer figures of what we paid and what we are paying. This position is the only one that we have administratively among our principals and our directors that is not in the senior management position. And basically, the Florida retirement system operates on so much percent per year for your 5 highest years if you remain in the defined benefits package, okay? So this moves, I believe senior management goes from teaching is 1.6 per year to senior management, and I'm operating off of memory, 2.5% per year. So what that happens to be in terms of numbers would be the difference between what that comes out. And Anne Marie has that figure. I don't have it with me, except it would be, this is an effort. You are limited to how many people can be in senior management. And we had an opportunity with one of our deputy superintendents who left, that created an opportunity to move Mr. McCarthy into that position, into that slot, not into the position of deputy superintendent.
Okay.
Is that superintendent, is that deputy superintendent position still open in the district and budgeted for?
No.
Okay, so if we brought in another deputy superintendent or the next superintendent did, how would that work as far as that position? I mean, I know it has been, like, even, I think it's been mentioned before in one of our meetings about looking at that. So I don't know, it's, you know, we've already cut that position.
Here's what I would assume would happen and what traditionally happens. The new superintendent comes in and has the ability to structure his team as he would like to see his team structured. Generally, what happens is that happens at the end of that current contract year. So that we're in the current contract year, and then the new superintendent would say, can make an appointment effective July 1 and create those positions, which would be in your new budget process year. Now, the new superintendent can move people around regardless of what time of year it is, provided that he understands that or she understands that person has a contract that says they get paid this many dollars. So if the new superintendent wanted to move someone from position A to let's just assume a classroom position. I'm not putting anything into anybody's mind. I'm just using that as an example. That person would be teaching and being paid at the director's level until the end of July, or the end of June, beginning of July, when the new recommendations would go in place. Sometimes that happens with new superintendents who want to put their teams in sooner. Okay, so that would be if the new superintendent wants to reestablish a second deputy superintendent, that would be, he could come to the board, she could come to the board in November, December, and say, this is what I'd like to do, and it's up to the board to do that. Or that person could wait until the new year, the new fiscal year for you folks.
But we still have to create that deputy superintendent position again, because you guys, we've already wiped it out, correct?
Yeah, it's wiped out, but the descriptions and everything else is still there. So it's not as if we're creating a new position, we're reviving a position that's already there. Now, depending on when that gets filled is what your decision would have to be. Of are we willing to do this at this point or at the next point?
Or even, I mean, it's up to us if we even fill it at all.
The superintendent has the right to be able to name his cabinet to work with him. And I'm using the he and him in a generic form. Yeah, it's a budget item and it's a fiscal item, so yes, you could have a lot of input on that.
Okay.
Now, I believe, and Anne Marie or Jamie, somebody correct me, are we capped at 20 or 25 of how many people can be in the senior management class?
Mr. Paletti, it is 20.
It's 20?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Action item B, new personnel allocation requests. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend approval of the new personnel allocation request. And I am searching for what that is.
Mental health allocation.
Mental health allocation. Okay, Dr. Staley, that's yours.
Yes, sir. Do you need information?
Madam Chair?
If you can tell them what it's regarding.
Yes.
Sure. It's an additional mental health counselor for the district, and we are getting that through our mental health allocation that we received additional funding for the 2021 school year. So the funding completely comes out of the allocation for the mental health. And we are going to, with that fourth position, be able to, between the fourth position and the CARES Act, be able to open up some time in the evenings for families to be able to get some counseling as well.
So that's not coming out of the general fund that might get sent in the packet?
No, sir, it's out of the, well, I think, I don't know how that works, Anne Marie can say, but it is out of the mental health allocation.
Okay.
The funding that we get specifically for that has to be spent for mental health. And we are opting for another person.
Okay. That makes me feel better, because it did say in there, if I'm not mistaken, that it said coming out of general fund.
Mr. Basswood, it does indicate general fund and a dash the mental health allocation, so I can see where that was, would pose a question. No worries. Okay, did I already get the recommendation?
Yeah.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B passes unanimously. Now we're moving forward to action item C, 2020/21 bus routes and school schedules. Superintendent, may I have your recommendations?
I recommend approval of the 2020-21 bus routes and school schedules.
Do I have a motion? Yes, sir?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to quickly add that we added minutes to the end of the day at Clewiston Middle School. It was easier to put them there than at the beginning of the day, so that the difference is compressed between both sides of the county.
Okay, do we have any discussion, any more discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I saw there's highlights for some of the times on the bus schedules. Are those some changes that were made, additions, or what? I'm kind of curious about that because I didn't see anything stating what those highlights were representing.
Mr. Paletti, may I address that?
Yes, you may.
Okay, the highlights on the schedule were just the school times, so you just saw where the highlights, those were just highlighting the schools. And just so you know, you may have noticed, we literally did that change so I could get on the minutes. I have some mistakes in that, on those bus schedules, so we'll have to make some changes. Because I have, for example, and there's a couple of routes that I drop off at 7 a.m. and that's gonna change by about 15 minutes because I had the pickup time and it was making all of the changes in those routes last week to try and adjust it. I missed, I think, on 4 different routes that will change by about 5 or 10 minutes. Not significant, but there are some changes that I need. And you'll notice we pick up at East Side in a couple of those routes and I show them picking up at 2:40 or 2:45 and there's just, they get out at 2:55. So I need to make those adjustments on the pickup change. So there's some very minor changes, but other than that, that's pretty much correct.
Cool, thank you.
I have some comments. So I went through the bus schedule and I made little columns for each school and the time that their teachers are on campus and what time the student day begins and what time they're being dropped off and picked up. And there are our elementary schools in Clewiston are gonna have 19 busloads of students delivered before any teacher gets there, according to the bus routes. And some of them as early as over an hour before school starts. And, you know, and when I'm thinking about, thinking forward, because all these things kind of are very interconnected, but when we're talking about in the school reopening plan and CDC guidelines and checking kids into school and screening temperatures and things like that, like I'm wondering, are we gonna have enough paras to come in that early for that long?
Good point, and we're working on that. And believe me, the principals have shared their concern, and as we are, because we can't just let now an early drop-off student into the building. That's not gonna happen. They have to be screened. We have a plan, and Dr. Mundy and Anne Marie and I are getting together to see what I can squeeze out of the CARES Act to offer paras the additional time for supervision. We're not gonna have a bunch of students on campus who are unsupervised. But I can't tell you what that looks like right now, but we're working on it. I know that I have a request for, let's see, right now, between two schools, I have a request for additional time for 19 paras. And the people who submitted to me are COE, CES, and UES. The one school, Westside, has asked that they wait until later, until they see how many students they actually have showing up. And I've said that's fine. But we are working on that plan. And the principals had a meeting today, a call-in meeting, and I'm waiting on a summary of that meeting to take further action.
Thank you for that. One of the things I've noticed here too, and I think it was an issue at Closton Middle School that you've worked to resolve, but at these schools, we have such early drop-offs. It's an hour before these kids get into a classroom, and it's kind of recreating the same situation that we had at that school, but with smaller, tinier, or needs-intensive population.
And what we're hoping is to be able to address some of we're hoping to be able to re-educate some parents, because we are operating in a totally different world, and you are absolutely right. I don't want to see babies standing in the street waiting to get through the gate, but on the same token, we really cannot open those gates until the buses start arriving. So I know the drop-off students primarily are children of parents who work out of town. And we will work on some sort of method that will work, not like what we were told that was going to happen at CMS, but we will work on some method to alleviate those problems.
Well, the things that I'm just mentioning, like bus drop-off, so, I mean, that's not, we can't re-educate that, the scheduling, and that scheduling would leave them there for an hour. And the concern is also, when you're looking at the final departure time, you would literally have your people, your administrators in charge on campus in a responsible manner from 6:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. And that is, that's a long day.
Well, unless they opt, and I will talk to the administrators, and they can swing that time. In other words, somebody else can be there, and they can either swing it or take additional duties or take turns per week. 1 week you have it, the next week I have it. You're here till the last bus leaves at 4:30, therefore you don't come in until 8:30. Okay, so we can work that as far as an administrator is concerned. We need to work that as far as a parent is concerned, so that we either swing time them or pay them additional money for their time. All right, so to me, supervision is supervision. The principal needs to be there, but I will tell you this, not only do we have teachers who will go the extended day, but we have principals who will go the extra mile. So I will tell them these things. Does that mean they're necessarily gonna do it? No, it's hard to get mad if they don't, because they're giving me extra time, they're giving the district extra time. And I just wanted to point that out to them, and we will work on this. We are looking, Mrs. Buser, we don't even know the questions and problems that we're going to encounter when we reopen. We haven't even anticipated them. We don't know what we don't know.
I know it's all very fluid, but I want to think about, it's very important to protect the morale, and when you have, and I agree, our administrators, they always dig deep, they always do what they need to do, but you don't want to burn them out, and you don't want to have certain places having less responsibility and time than other. I mean, I know it's not everything's going to be fair, not everything's going to be equal, but you just don't want to have gaping disparities there in order to protect culture.
Believe me, we are working on that. And believe me, the principals are telling us the issues they're having.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. The 2020-21 bus routes and school schedule passes 4-1 with Houston as the nay vote. Okay, item D is going to be TSA Consulting Group Retirement Plan Compliance and Administration Services Agreement. Do I have a recommendation, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, I recommend approval.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, that's the retirement plan you said, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, is this a new thing that we're doing? Is this an existing contract that we've done annually?
Yes, we have yes, it is. These are the people who look at the retirement plan plan and all of our service agreements. They're the ones who make our recommendations in terms of any TSA carrier we have, tax sheltered annuity. And let me explain how this works. They're one of the only companies in the state, if not the only company in the state that does this. So if you have an employee who has an annuity and suppose they want to buy a new car or pay for college, they have to, ordinarily, if we don't use this, then that person needs to go through actually, Anne Marie to sign off. It's not new in terms of we're just doing it this year, but it's new within the past 5 years. So we've done a TSA would be the company that signs off and moves this forward for the people.
Right, if I may, TSA does manage our 457, our 401s, our 403s, excuse me. So that is their primary role, is to manage the voluntary retirement program. And it does include what, that which Mr. Paletti just said. And there is no, I think we did, are correct, we started this contract with them about 5 years ago. And there is no charge to the district for this particular service.
That's what I was gonna ask. I saw where it says something about that on the very last page. It's an annual fee of $24 a year, billed monthly.
Correct.
The last page of the contract, so I was like, that can't be right. That's mighty cheap to provide a service for $24 a year. That's what I was wanting to find out.
That is for the participant. The participant pays $2 on their monthly statement. So it's just reduced from their investment proceeds.
And other than that, it doesn't cost the district anything.
Does not cost the district. There used to be a fee back, I believe, under CFO Veal. They renegotiated their contract and waived all fees and just kept the $2 charge.
Can't beat that, then that answers that. Thank you.
I'll sign up for $2 monthly administration fees all day. Okay, do we have any further more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, action item D passes unanimously. Action item E will be Vanguard Janitorial Service Agreement. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
Yes, I recommend approval of that agreement for Vanguard Janitorial Services to serve with the office and work for various employees.
So moved.
Second.
All right, you guys are ahead of this. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. The janitorial services, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the service that the deputy superintendent's assistant was performing for us?
I believe it is.
Yeah,
Miss Allison was doing the sub-office and workforce, or the welding.
Is she not interested in doing this anymore,
her
or?
new position sort of limits her ability to do this.
Her new position Okay, I was not aware she had a new position.
Well, remember, she moved from us and she works with K-12.
Okay, all right. So she's not able to perform the duty any longer.
Right.
And so, okay, well, then, that's why I was just kind of curious, but I knew that she was performing the service for us, and I was just kind of curious why we changed all of a sudden here.
Mr. Superintendent, I know that we're using Vanguard. Can y'all hear me? Because I feel like it's storming over here. It's glitchy on my end.
I can hear you.
Okay. I know that Vanguard, we're using them on other cleaning, maybe the finance office or.
Yes, in the sub office in LaBelle, or the old brick building in LaBelle. Yes, we are.
All right. And has that been, I was gonna ask you, Hendry, has that been satisfactory? Have they been,
Yeah. They provide excellent level of service. Remember, due to COVID, we cut them back from their 5-day a week to 2 days a week. Their contract expires in January and we'll be going out for bid based on the new revised level of service. So part of that was due to y'all, especially Mr. Basquin, questioning us about this earlier. Mr. Basquin, you may remember that you all were asking about this earlier. So we have been reevaluating the contract and plan to do a different type of contract. Still, we have to have a building cleaned. But of course, it'll be different starting in January when we go out to bid.
Very good, thank you.
all right, thank you, Ms. McCarty. Do we have any further board discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Action item E passes unanimously. Action item F is Behavioral Options LLC contract for services. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
I recommend approval of the Behavioral Options LLC contract for services for the year 2020-21.
Thank you. Do I have sorry, not a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Anyone have a second? Perfect. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, is this service, is it something new that we are starting this year, this behavioral service with these people? Or have we been doing?
Sorry.
I'll let Dr. Staley can interject on that, but we have been doing ever since the Fort Lauderdale issue a whole bunch of behavioral work. And so I'll let her go into detail with this.
This is a contract I believe the district has held for about 8 years. This was not anything new. The demand for service has gone up the past 2 years. As Mr. Paletti said, there's been a little more reach out to them from us for support. But I believe that they're vital. And the other piece of that is it comes out of my ESE general fund, this contract.
This will come out of your ESE general fund, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. And that's part of why I was asking as well, so I appreciate you answering that. You jumped ahead of me, that's great, I like that.
No worries.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And in my opinion, it's a very crucial service because these are the folks who are intervening on your more severe behavioral issues. The ones that are just, out of the experience and wheelhouse of typical classroom management. So that is, it's a crucial service. Do we have any further discussion?
Well, Madam Chair, on that note, what are they doing for our students if they're having behavioral issues? What kind of things do they do for them?
It is an entire process of a behavioral plan. They retrain basically behavior and they reform their behaviors into a more positive behavior, but it takes a significant amount of time to do that. Time and constant sometimes hand over hand for some of these behavior people that we have on the team. So it's a long process in some cases, but it's also they reach out to the teachers to help them also be a part of that behavior plan and be able to work on that behavior and change that behavior.
Because I know that in the past, I have had people tell me that we have students that have gotten in the teachers' faces and spit on them and called them all kind of unpleasant names, and honestly, our teachers should not have to put up with that. So if these are the type of people that can change that behavior, then I'm all for that. That's why I was wondering what do they do? How do they change these kids' behavior?
It's an amazing process if you want to sit through and one of a meeting with myself and our behavior analyst, Mrs. White. I would love for you to hear, because we do some amazing work with some of these kids.
That is great, because like I said, our staff should not have to put up with that, and if these people can change that, I'm all for it. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Basquin. Thank you, Dr. Staley. Do we have any further board discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Action item F. That's F? It is F. Passes unanimously. Okay, moving forward to board member business, 2020-21 Heartland Education Consortium dues and resolution. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
Yes, I recommend approval of the Heartland Consortium dues and approval of resolution for us to continue as members.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Your mic's on, Stephanie.
Well, I was just commenting that you guys are on the ball and I am on. So, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item A passes unanimously. Okay, now moving forward to item B is the plan for reopening schools for 2020-21. I know that this has a lot of community interest in it, so I guess before I ask for a recommendation, Superintendent, would you like an opportunity to speak to this, or?
Yes, I would, and some things came to light. When we talk about things changing rapidly, they change rapidly. When things came to light, it agreed with that too. And yes, and we were on a webinar, 4 of us were on a webinar where we heard this. Things changed dramatically yesterday because we had submitted a plan prior to an executive order being issued that said that schools will be reopening in August. And one of the options for students would be to attend 5-day-a-week classes. But we can have other options. Well, we had developed a plan based on, and I'm not going to claim super credit, we actually looked at what some other larger districts were doing and decided that we would adopt that. So our plan would essentially be that students could return to a brick and mortar classroom August 10th, if that's what the parents and the students want. Or in real time, they could, suppose there's a student who has a severe chronic condition, you have an asthmatic student. They want to stay as a member of Westside Elementary School. They like that school, they love their teacher. They can stay in that classroom, but study at home in real time so that they stay with the teacher and those students at that point, okay? Or the third option would be a virtual school experience. We have that relationship with K-12, the parents can pick any other one they want to go to. It matters not. The issue with K-12 would be that we can retain some of the FTE. We have a whole bunch of questions that are arising from this. The more we work on it, the more questions arise. At 3 p.m. today, we received word that you do not necessarily have to approve this tonight, okay? As a matter of fact, I would recommend that you work on it. We have to get a plan by July 31st. That plan has to go in. It could go in with a superintendent's recommendation to the state. However, we have a board meeting, if I'm not mistaken, on the 21st, where the board can then take action so that we can have a finalized plan on doing this. Toward this end, I have scheduled a school reopening forum for Thursday at 1:30 p.m. And this will be because we can't do the traditional forums that we did before when we had discussions about the school guardian program. This will be a live Facebook or however way the draft sets it up. So we will have me and I will have other members of the staff there to answer questions. We don't have all the answers. And folks, this plan is not perfect. And the questions that people have, we're not going to be able to answer all of them to the satisfaction, realizing that parents are very hesitant and nervous about sending their children back. Other parents are saying, please let us do this, okay? So let me send my kids back to school. Others are a little bit more hesitant. Toward that end, for us to get more data, when we developed this plan, we put out a survey. Never was it the majority of responses that we returned to school. However, it was 44%. Most of the responses were that. Excuse me, until cases started spiking. And then we saw it drop down. And we dropped down to around 38%, okay? So that we basically have a little more than a third brick and mortar, a little more than a third, let's take it easy and watch and see. And yes, we will be interested in this real time. And a few others say we'll support the virtual school. Toward that effort, what I plan to do, unless somebody tells me stop, tomorrow by noon, we will go live with the plan as it has been presented to you, because the parents and students are going to have to make their choices where they want to go and what they want to do. And quite frankly, a lot of the questions that you have raised tonight depend on how many students are showing up at each school. I have a feeling that in some schools it's going to be quite large, and others it may not be so large, okay? And that speaks directly to the level of supervision in the morning and the bus routes. So that's one reason I can't really say this is what's going to happen. But on a daily basis, we're going to turn this data over to the principals so that they can begin the planning for the reopening. We have I sent you yesterday the order from the state that says how we should be doing this. The plan that we have, that we're working on right now, fits that mold, and that fits that model. Is it what I really, truly in my heart want to do? No. I wish, but we have to be aware that unless the state Department of Health in Hendry County says you cannot have schools unsafe, we're going to open school in August, and people are going to have a choice to make. And a lot of the issues we're going to be, like we said in March, this isn't just learning how to fly a plane, it's learning how to fly a plane while you're building the plane. Okay, and we're back at that situation. Fully aware that we can do all of this and things are gonna change again. All right? That's just the nature of how we have lived. And what we do and what this board does now by giving increased choice to parents is forever gonna change the delivery of education, not just in Henry County, but throughout Florida. And we need to be aware of that. We need to be as cautious and prudent and judicious as possible, exercising at all levels what the commissioner has said that we do with compassion, dignity, and grace. And that's how we are proceeding. And we have to look at CDC guidelines and issue them and abide by them where they are practical. Because schools are not built to be able to comply with all of the CDC guidelines. We can make them a lot safer and a lot cleaner. We can do social distancing in certain areas in certain ways, but not in all. But we can, we have to, if we had to do CDC guidelines for bus transportation, for example, we need 4 times the number of buses we currently have. Because basically we would be dropping off and taking home students all day long. We have certain procedures that are gonna be put in place for buses and the bus students. They will have to wear a mask. If they present to school, that's why it's crucial that we take their temperatures at school. They will be isolated in a room that's not the regular clinic. We have guidance out to parents that's going out today of what to do, how to do it, when your child is sick, when you can bring them back, and so on and so forth. But, I will entertain any question you may have, knowing that I don't have all of the answers, but we are working diligently to get them. So that's what I wanted to say, Madam Chair. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So I want to make sure I'm correct in understanding that on Thursday, you're going to do like the Q&A, like roll it out?
Yes, and
Okay.
for everybody, anybody who has a question.
Okay. And so, and then what was the tomorrow by noon deadline?
Tomorrow by noon, the ability for parents to choose what they're gonna do this coming year, we are going to open that up. And we're gonna close it down rather quickly by July 15th, so that we know now parents can go online, they can go to the school, but that information is gonna be transmitted daily to the school so that they can start planning.
Okay, fantastic. So you'll leave them a week to kind of make their decision and indicate their intent. Thursday, you're going to roll out a Q&A, and you are looking for us to make approve on the 21st.
That would be my recommendation to you right now. We now have time and guidance to do that. Let's get this plan buttoned down even more, and then present it to you on the 21st, and the board can act on it at that point before we submit it to the state. I would like it all in one buttoned up, tied up package, so that we don't just send it with the superintendent's recommendation and come back and then all heck breaks loose here because there's something a board member didn't see or like or want. So I'd rather have all of that done with your input. We will work our best to get it done to you and to you before the 21st. Now, it might be 5:30 on the 20th, but because there are a lot of things we have to do to this plan and submitted this plan to get it to you, but we will get it to you before the 21st.
Okay, thank you. So does that recommendation require a vote? I mean, because that's essentially like pulling it.
It's essentially pulling it. It doesn't require a vote. It's just that's my recommendation to you, that you wait till we have more data to get to you to make a decision.
Done.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions from the board?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I do have a question, and Mr. Bloody may not know at this point. We are in hurricane season. Do we have any idea what that's looking like for shelter?
Thank you for bringing that nightmare up. We need to pray that we don't get hit by a storm because we are going to have to open shelters simultaneously because we cannot accommodate 500 people come at once when we have to socially distance. On that regard, we can have like no group bigger than 50 in an area. So that means instead, here's what we do traditionally. Clewiston High School opens, then it rolls to the next one when one is filled. What we're gonna have to do is open 3 in Clewiston, 3 in LaBelle simultaneously so that people can go. Now, we will do what we can to hope that not everybody shows up at one shelter at the same time. And having said all that, and where it is practical, when the storm hits, it doesn't matter what your plan is, you have to bring those people in and give them shelter, okay? We also have to take their temperatures, because if they do have a fever, you cannot turn them away. You have to find an additional place somewhere isolated from the rest of the group to put those people. So that's why we need to really, really hope that we have no storm situation hitting in Hendry, or anywhere for that matter, because we're all under the same.
Well, and that's why I was asking, I didn't know if we were going to use, just say central or east side or west side as a shelter, if we were planning on putting them in classrooms to, in groups, or what were we, what
We will probably, and teachers hate to hear this, principals hate to hear this, there will be a tour done of all the schools with Dr. Egley and with members of the emergency management. They will determine, we know the gymnasiums, we know the auditoriums. We're gonna have to use classrooms. And we're gonna have to figure out which ones those will be before the event occurs, so that when the order to open is issued, we start preparing those classrooms, because we had, in the last event, we had to use classrooms and it was not ideal. It's not gonna be ideal this time around, but we can make it a little bit better. We had classrooms where you had to put dogs, and that didn't sit well, particularly over here in LaBelle where, and I said no dogs, and then I get a call from Governor Scott himself saying, but federal law says you must take pets. We have nobody from animal control helping us in the shelters. And thankfully, Dr. Egley, Mr. Busen, and Mr. Talata were able to handle that. They had dogs, they had birds, they had whatever. So you can put all of that on top of the COVID concerns that we're gonna have when it hits. And we will probably have, if it hits, people from outside the district who come into our shelters, and you cannot run them away either.
Right. Okay, yeah, I didn't know, I know that the several years ago when we had this goal, we talked about trying to stay on top of it with emergency management and everything. So I wasn't sure how much in your spare time that I know you just have so much of right now.
We're working on that now. In the last event, that was the one, remember, where Clewiston was evacuated.
Right.
And people were sent here. Well, the storm missed Clewiston and hit LaBelle, so we had a big mess. And we had everybody over here trying to figure out what to do where, and then all of a sudden we have people, what do you say to a family who brings Lassie with them, who has no shock record or anything else? Sorry, you can't come in, and they're not coming in without their dog. Well, you're supposed to have a shock record, they're supposed to be kenneled, so on and so forth. So the one recommendation we had is to take a recycling bin, put the dog in the recycling bin, take another recycling bin, put that on top of the dog, and fasten it with zip ties. Now, we're supposed to be, we need to get the help from the animal control officers in this district to agree to salute the flag and let's come on and let's do this. We also have some commitment from the county that up to 6 employees will be at each shelter to help us.
Nice.
The county and the municipalities don't really need those folks until after the storm passes. We need them during the event. So that's why we're asking that. I have got a commitment. I have a call in to this one city. I have not called Lewiston, but the county administrator said she feels as if we could do that. I know the director of EOC is contacting the animal control officers at Lewiston and LaBelle to get us help for that. So on top of all this, when we reopen school, we just add horror to your nightmare. When we reopen school, and it's suppose in October we have a storm hit, we're out again.
Yeah.
For a certain number of days. Let's not mention the fact that some of our staff might be exposed to COVID-19 while they're working in the shelter, which means that depending on whether they contracted or not, they may be out so that we're out administrators when school reopens. That's why we have something I'm boring the rest of the board, and I'm sorry, but I just need to bring everybody up to date. I hate this term, but we have something called a designated survivor at each of the schools, so that those administrators, there is one administrator at each of the school who is not going to be in the shelter in the event that we have that happen, so that somebody can come in and run the school.
Good thinking. I like that. All right, I didn't mean to start a whole big conversation there, but I mean, it's just something that I'm sure people want to
You
know.
went over this, you weren't at the last meeting, and we went over part of this last time, and you need to be brought up to speed, no problem.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Would it be inappropriate to ask Reverend Brown, pray, lead us in prayer?
It'll be all right. It'll be all right. Hey.
Your mic's muted, Stephanie.
Goodness gracious, somebody take this mic away from me. No, I just, wow, that's a lot to take on. And if there's any way, that if you need any help in advocating with, the city of Lewiston, I'd be glad to, step in there with you and, if we can get support.
I'm not sure, because I get mixed signals, I'm not sure in the city of Lewiston. Does CPD run animal control?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, then you need-
I think that when you call CPD to get animal control to like report, but I don't know if they oversee animal control.
all right, what we need to do is get hold of who tells animal control what to do.
That would be the police chief.
The police chief?
All right.
All right.
That's good to know. Okay, so, all right. Is it possible, here's a thought that, as far as, goodness gracious, I can't even get a sentence out. The, shelters, to zone them for locals, and then, because, we always have, the folks from the coast rushing in because we're so inland, to zone our, shelters for local folks and then have a non-local shelter?
We could, that would be one way to do that, and it would work well if we just use attendance zone as well. But in Clewiston, we don't have attendance zone, so we could just, yeah, we can do that, we'll work on that, that's a good idea. I was trying to figure out how to accommodate it. That doesn't mean that everybody's gonna follow that plan, but at least we'll have a plan that some of them will follow.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have, the superintendent has removed the plan for reopening, and that will be on the decision we made on July 21st. So moving forward, We have item C, request for reimbursement of legal fees. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
I'm gonna defer to the attorney because being a principal in this, I'm not really going to make my own recommendation. So if I could, would it be appropriate if the deputy superintendent handled this point of business?
I'm not opposed.
Okay, I see, sorry, the attorney shaking her head, yes.
Yes.
If Dr. Egley is there, could you take up action item C under board member business?
Yes, sir. Madam Chairperson, I ask your favorable consideration to approve the request for reimbursement for legal fees.
Thank you. We have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
In a second. Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C passes unanimously. Okay, and for discussion, we have item D, it's the administrative salary schedule. And this was my request. Did you want to say anything leading into this, Mr. Superintendent?
The one thing that I would say, and I don't care what you do, is that you let people look at it. We are already set for this year, so we're not racing the clock and then spend more time on it after you've looked at it and thought about it and asked questions. Because we can't we can't do this retroactively, it passed the wrong one. So there are some very valid and legitimate concerns, but you need to, I think, have more time to deal with it than just act on it right now.
Oops, there we go. I'm in agreement with that. I think that we can, this would be a excellent workshop topic. But yeah, you are correct that we are not under the gun to make this happen right now. And, we're already contractually obligated to this. So, if that is amenable to the rest of the board.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to see in the future, when we're doing salary schedules, I'd like to compare last year's to the newest version so that we can see what changes have been made. We can, side-by-side comparison. That would help me. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to see that for future references.
I think that that's doable. I know that like when we make changes, it's always kind of piecemeal, but if we could, in our discussions going forward, there's a lot of different ways to change it up or to modify it. A lot of different things that could happen there. So maybe we just, when we talk about what we want it to look like going forward, and then have that side-by-side comparison of where we're at right now. Would that work?
That would, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
All right. Well, that, so we don't have to take any items on that, any action on that. I'm really speaking on. Do we have any board member business? Dr. Bird, do you have anything? A loser, she here? I think I may have lost her. All right, Ms. Nelson, do you have anything?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for all of their due diligence in this time. I know it's so stressful, but hang in there, we get through it.
Absolutely. Mr. Baswin.
I think I said enough tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it.
And you, Reverend Brown, do you have anything?
I don't have any question. I got a comment, related to the superintendent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, in any difficult situation, like the one we're in now, our nation, whether our state, I was so concerned about our children, what we're going to do with the reopening. But your competency in knowing what's really going on, and your especially tonight, really helped me to get a good feeling that we can do it. So I just want to say thank you for presenting information tonight. It could have been worse if you sound confused. I would have got scared. Because you presented it.
I'm putting on a good act.
Right now, like that.
No,
Yeah,
next
good.
time,
Yeah, good.
I
Appreciate that.
have very good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I love you, Rob. So I have just my constant reading. I was reading about the budget cuts that the governor made, and I was curious. I saw that the Guardian program took a beating in the legislative cuts, and I was wondering if that was going to have any impact on how we're running that situation here.
No, because really it was moved from one area. This was money that had been carried over that had not been spent. We have had no problem in Hendry County spending the money that's been allocated for the Guardian program. So that piece was a representation of, you got so much money even if you did not have a Guardian program, so he cut that out, and that's what happened.
Okay, thanks for providing that clarification, because I was wondering, like, how are we put it in one year and it looked like it got gutted the next, but that makes sense. There was a,
Yeah.
particularly your urban, larger districts didn't go with that. And another request I would like to make, and I don't know if I'm going to have the board support for this, is a return to, I know the extension of the executive order gives the superintendent the purview to call meetings and determine if we're going to do it virtually or in person. But I didn't know if the other members of the board shared my sentiment about trying to return to in-person meeting. I don't know if there is any interest in that. I just kind of feel like if we're sending our staff back to school now and expecting them to be on campus and face-to-face, then that might, show some, be something prudent for us to do.
Yes, and particularly if we're expecting our children to be sent back to school, we need to be able to get together.
I agree.
I've always been okay with it.
Right, so
I'm still debating.
Come on, Red, join us.
Yeah, I still love you
Okay.
we love you too. We'll get you a nice mask, like a custom mask. Yeah,
though.
so
All y'all wear masks.
Don't think
Everybody wear masks.
yeah.
We might have to do that. If we
We
can't
have
be
to.
social distance, we'll all be wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's, but we'll look at it.
Reverend, we want you to go by the flag.
Yeah, I'll be right in the room looking at you. Peace.
Well, we still have the option for those who want to meet in person until this executive order wraps up, like still allow that option for those who didn't want to meet virtually. Would that be amenable to everyone? Is that okay with you, Superintendent?
Yeah,
Yes, that's fine.
yes.
Fantastic. So our next meeting on July 21st, would that be an in-person?
Sounds good to me.
It could be.
Where is it going to be, Lavelle or Lewiston?
That would be the middle side.
That's what I thought.
Mr. Paletti, no, sir, they changed that. Mr. Basquin asked that that meeting be held in Clewiston.
Oh, that's right. We have a budget issue to deal with on that day.
Just permission to advertise a budget.
Okay, is that, okay, now,
That's the noon meeting, correct?
Yes, that's the quick meeting that begins at noon. Yes, sir.
and then there will be a longer meeting that evening?
No, sir, the next meeting is July 28th, and that is scheduled for LaBelle, and that is our tentative budget hearing.
Okay, can we add on to the agenda on the 21st, the reopening plan?
Yes, sir.
We need to do that on that day.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay,
All right, that concludes, thank you for agreeing to do that, everybody. I think that's gonna be a great show of leadership, for our families and our staff, so thank you. And, that concludes my board member comments. Superintendent, do you have anything before we adjourn?
yes, I do. At our last board meeting, I mistakenly said that you folks had received some information that I honestly felt you had. I'm not making any excuses other than that we had talked about it. I had talked about the issue, and it was about the issue with the complaint with the ESE department with the state regarding Clewiston Middle School. We talked about it. We knew there were issues at CMS. Dr. Staley and I talked about it. We've had COVID going on, and it slipped, it just went out of my mind. I assumed it went, we all know what happens when you assume. So I apologize to the board for insisting that you had received something that in fact you did not receive. I think we have made amends for that. You have the information. Dr. Bailey sent that out to you earlier, but I wanted to apologize to the board for my mistake.
Accepted.
Thank you, Superintendent. We all make mistakes, so that's, not a, not a deal breaker there, but I appreciate you, clarifying that. Is there anything else from anyone?
Makes a big man don't know the mistakes.
Tough, yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, guys, well, thank you all for a good meeting, and I look forward to, hearing the plan being rolled out. I know that I've collected a lot of questions, and if that's okay with the superintendent, I would email them so you kind of have an idea already of what's floating around there. And so I look forward to that being rolled out and seeing everyone again on the 21st. And so with that, do you have anything, Mr. Paletti? Oh, I thought you were gonna go, you're like.
Lean forward to turn off my computer.
All right. I thought you wanted to talk, and I was like, all right.
No.
Okay, well, again, thank you everyone for your work and for your information here, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.